Our guest this episode is Jeffrey Coppola, a sales leader, Army veteran, and revenue strategist who's built a career around creating scalable systems that drive business growth. Jeffrey combines disciplined execution with process-driven innovation, and as the driving force behind EventReps, he helps organizations transform trade shows from costly marketing activities into predictable revenue-generating engines. Through event strategy, on-site execution, and follow-up systems, his team delivers measurable pipeline results and lasting business impact. So he's here to discuss transforming live events from that marketing expense into scalable growth engines. Please welcome to the podcast, Jeffrey Coppola. Welcome. Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here. And as I said, we were in the green room, let's call it, the podcast green room. We were just kind of talking about, I found you on LinkedIn, I think, and the post that I think I saw was, and we started, interacting that way, was that your badge scanner is lying to you, and I was kind of like, ooh, I like that. It's provocative, that sort of thing. So I just because that's where we started our interaction, I think I want to start there right now.
Sure.
What do you mean by that? Can we unpack that, and then we'll kind of get into your background and how you got into this? But I just think that that's kind of a neat way to kind of start the interview.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you interacting with the post, and not necessarily meant to be provocative, but what I will say is it's meant to be transparent around the things that you receive from a lot of the exhibitors or the event organizers, where you kind of show up to an event and you get a badge scanner that they kind of either give you. There's a lot of really good ones out there that exist on the market, but what I will say is a lot of them were created by people with maybe a marketing background or maybe an events background. I think what makes the badge scanner that I built a little bit unique, and why I looked at it in a different way, is I looked at it from a sales background, right? I want to know, of the people that come to my booth, who is immediately the right person for me to follow up with, and who are the people that I can just completely leave out of my CRM, right? And so when you're looking at a badge scanner CSV after the event is over, you may have 150 leads that you say, wow, this is great. We had an amazing show, right? But of those 150 leads, how many are actually qualified opportunities? How many are going to be followed up with by sales in a meaningful way with meaningful context? Right. And so again, with a badge scanner that you get from a trade show that just has a little notes section, maybe not even like a talk to text section. And that's super important too, because after a conversation is over, you might have a 20-30-minute conversation with somebody that went really well. There's a lot of little nuances in those conversations that you're going to forget about. Right. I have a terrible memory. I know I would forget half of that conversation. So if you can record or at least have something going in the background to summarize the conversation that you're having, and then immediately score that person that you talk to by persona, by intent signals, by what's their timeline, what are they looking for, what's their authority within the buying process, and what is the heat of the conversation? Was it were they leaning in and engaged? Were they passive but maybe polite? These are things that you need to measure so that after the show is over, or even after the day is over, they can get appropriate follow-up. So that, again, you're measuring what events are going to be working for you in the future, and you're ignoring the ones maybe that don't have a lot of good leads for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so when you created this badge, the scanner, it's an app, or is it's an actual?
It's a web app, and the real thing about it is it's more a complement to the services that EventReps provides. So
Gotcha.
What we essentially do is we create systems for companies that want events to become a steady revenue channel for them. And it's a real problem, because there's a lot of people that rely on events for pipeline, but they don't really know the system to create quality pipeline and repeatable pipeline that actually makes a difference in their revenue. And so when you look at the broader event space, right? So if you're at an event and you look at it from the outside in, it kind of is a microcosm of the go-to-market landscape, right? You have every single company that's out there, the marketing team, they put up the booths, they put up all the things, right? And you do an amazing job at creating these experiences for people at events or at specific booths and different places. But one thing that I think that is often forgot about is how can we maximize pipeline from before the event even starting to the event actually taking place to after the event taking place, right? These are things that I think about as a salesperson. These are things that I think are really important to consider. And that's really honestly why I created EventReps. And the scanner that I have in place is just sort of a complement to the structure that I've created for the system of qualifying and measuring your pipeline. Also, going into an event, right? Cost per lead is really, really high if you don't have a system in place, something over $800 per lead. It's insane, right? But if you have a system in place, that number drops dramatically, right? So if you have a system in place that is loosey-goosey, all right, it's going to go down maybe a little bit, sure. But if you have a system in place that's proven to work and that has been, scaled and repeated over and over again, you're making events a solid revenue channel, and you're making it something that actually can turn into maybe the biggest pipeline channel for your entire business. So that's really why I started EventReps, and that's the booth scanners complement sort of.
Gotcha. And it's funny because this is very much topical to me right now, because I was just on a podcast yesterday,
Yeah.
and it was about tech B2B podcast, and they were kind of saying, like, for the business leaders out there who are going like, hey, I've got 500K, should I just pump this into ads, be able to track attribution, or look at an event or two smaller events or whatever it is? Like, do I do that? And it's kind of like that's, and I had answered that because we work with so many different companies, we're on that front end. We're about engagement, the engagement layer at the show. So we can increase the leads, increase the number of demos, those valuable conversations. But what happens after the fact, we have nothing to do with, right? So that kind of pulling it all the way through, the idea of, like you said, pipeline generation before the event, like we couldn't think about that years ago, right? Like that kind of pre-show marketing, and the only thing you could do is buy the list if they were selling the list to do that, right? To try to just kind of, so maybe let's jump over there, Jeffrey, just because it's like, what are you talking about creating pipeline before an event? I think that's a mind blower for some people.
It is. And I think going into an event, when I first started doing this years ago, as a sales leader, we would show up to events and we would, try to get as many conversations as possible, grabbing people that were walking by the booth or maybe even sitting behind the booth and waiting for people to come to us. And then I had that, aha moment where I'm like, wait a minute, like if a regular business increases pipeline and revenue through a multi-channel approach, then why are we just sitting at the table here? We got to go get people. Let's go out. Let's go grab them, right? And it kind of developed from there. And I was thinking to myself before one of the other events, and a lot of the other leaders at the company I was at, we all kind of huddled around. We were talking about how we can do this, and we were like, well, why don't we get these pre-registration show lists? And even if you don't, the companies that are all going. So if you know your ICP, the people that may be there, or if you have the registration list, even better, right? Why not reach out to them and say, hey, let's meet at the show, right? Let's set aside 30 minutes at the show. And I can give you a demo. We're going to be there face to face. I'll go get you a cup of coffee, or we can have lunch together, or anything, right? So when you go to a show, you're going to a show with pipeline already established and already created, right? So what that does is it increases your booth traffic, because you know that there's going to be people around before the show even starts, before they get on the plane. They're already planning on meeting you. So that's a really, really important thing. When we started doing that, we started noticing that, we would have people walk by and they'd look at our booth and they'd be like, yeah, I'm supposed to meet Jeff here, I think. And yeah, come on over. And, you're already having a warm conversation with somebody that may have been completely cold to them.
Because you've predisposed them to the idea of doing it, and whether or not they actually booked or not, at least you got your name, your company name, your brand in front of them. Was that outreach mostly email based, Jeffrey? What kind of channels were you using to try to book that
I
pre-show
mean,
meetings?
everything. Like I'm a big proponent of obviously a multi-channel approach in every single
Yeah,
aspect of sales. And so again, I think the first thing that you're going to want to do if you have numbers, of course, you're going to want to call those numbers. I think if you're going to meet somebody in person, a personal approach is best to start off with. So if you can talk to them,
yeah,
great, right? If that doesn't work, if you can't get a hold of them, then obviously email is totally fine. And in that vein, if you're sending out an email, one of the things that I think is important to note is, it's not going to be like a typical cold email, right? Where you send out, you say, hey, this is a product that we have. This is what it does. And we would love to meet you. Do you have time at this time? That isn't really going to work, right? Because if you're going to an event, you want to make sure that there's something there that they can take away from this, right? I believe in a give to get sort of relationship. So if you are going to send an email to somebody for an event, let's say you have your CEO there or your CTO or whoever else is maybe speaking at a session, right? Hey, so and so is a subject matter expert in the field that you are in. He or she would love to meet you. I've got like these 3 spots open on their calendar. And then if you're in the area, you can also stop by and we can show you real quick like what the product does and what they've been working on. Do you have time at so and so, whatever? And then again, that is something that I think they look at, and you're adding value to their show experience. You're not just saying, come by the booth and let's have a chat. Because what value does that really offer if they're not interested in your product? Right.
yeah.
So at least they're having a good conversation with somebody in the field that they're in, and they might actually get something from it from an intellectual standpoint, or maybe they'll just make some new friends. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's some also kind of, I mean, the relevance that you're going to be at a show that they're at.
Yep.
So it's not completely cold. That's already giving them feeling of
so
safety in a sense, right? The fact that you are offering up, time with a subject matter expert in the same vertical,
Sure.
is kind of this a peer-to-peer kind of thing that also makes them feel good, right? So it's feeling less like a sales pitch and more, perhaps
Absolutely.
networking, that kind of thing. Okay, that's all good. So let's rewind a little bit, Jeffrey, and talk about like, how did event reps come to be? Was there this level of frustration that you ran into, or from a former, position or something in sales, and you're like, oh, there's got to be a better way, kind of classic, infomercial kind of thing.
So
Tell me, how did event reps come to be?
yes and no. The I would say inception of the company or the system really started in that first moment at an event where I thought to myself, wait a minute, we should be creating multiple channels here, right? And so that had a moment that had a really positive effect on the way we ran events. And so when I feel like I'm getting traction with something, I will work it to the bone, right? And so I just kind of wanted to keep making it better and keep making it better and keep making it better. And so I, at that company that I was at, was going to a lot of different events, and my team was responsible for representing our company at the events. So I just kept on trying to make it better and better and better. I got a lot of feedback from the people I was working with. I got a lot of feedback from the people that we were meeting at the conferences. And I took that playbook with me, with modified, of course, and I iterated it on it at every single company that I went to, because obviously different persona, different industries from time to time, and it continued to be super effective for all of the companies that I went to. And in making it better and better and better, I remember this very clear moment I had at a trade show in Fort Worth, Texas, where the company I was at, we had the worst positioning of any booth in the entire conference, very far back corner. And it was a bit of a whirlwind of a trade show because we didn't really have a marketing team, and we had this bad roll up that was behind a really plain looking table. From a booth standpoint, from like these booth designers and everybody, they would look at our booth and they'd be like, this is awful.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing here?
Okay.
But the system that we had in place had so many people coming over that all of the other people around us were walking over and they were saying, what are you guys doing? And I'm more than happy to tell people, this. I'm not reinventing the wheel, right? I think there's this thing where like people know what they need to be doing. It's the execution of that, though, that sometimes they have a hard time actually fulfilling, right? People know that pipeline is super important at events. People know that they need to be reaching out to people before or maybe even during and after, but they have so many other things that they have to do that sometimes they just honestly overlook it, right? So I think from a standpoint of even like sales training in general, everybody knows what they need to be doing. It's really doing it that is the biggest part, right? So creating that system and then actually representing these people. I was talking with a colleague of mine, and I was like, this is something that people should do. Like there should be a company that helps people with all of this stuff, because every company that I've gone to that we've implemented the system at, it's worked and helped their events systems get better and better and better and create more pipeline and actually become one of the best revenue channels. And so I kind of had a little bit of a soft launch of it. And, I was still working my day job, and just kind of created a LinkedIn profile, and I left it alone. I didn't really do anything with it, but I started getting people messaging me on LinkedIn saying, hey, do you help out with people that are overseas and represent people like, at different companies, or do staffing and do this and do that? And it kind of created this this thought process in my mind where I was like, okay, I could create actually different modules of work and help people out in different ways that I actually didn't even realize that maybe I wanted to. And so that kind of became the inception of the company EventReps, where I was like, okay, there's a pre-event motion. That's our event readiness phase. The actual event, which is the pipeline generation phase. And then there is the post-event, which is the pipeline realization phase. All those three things, when you put them together, creates a really, really seamless system for events that will, I guarantee, again, if you don't have a system currently, I guarantee it's going to be of in your benefit to do this, because, this is just something that people are spending too much money on and not getting enough in return.
Yeah. So let's this is exciting. So let's dig into that event pipeline generation piece. So at the show, and I mean, this is something we do talk about: trade shows, pre-show, during show, after show. But what you're bringing together is specialized and a formula, it looks like. So tell me about what does EventReps do for a company when you do that at the show phase that you were just talking about?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. If there is a company like I've had a few engagements with people where they have maybe a smaller sales team, and again, I'm not really here to represent the massive companies like like IBM or Google or whatever, because they have buku bucks they can just throw at anything, and they're just going to have 7,000 salespeople walking around talking whatever. I'm here to help a company that maybe is founder-led, growth-driven, right? Or I'm here to help the companies that maybe have a few SDRs and they don't really have a system for events and they want to get into events. I'm here to help those companies because, again, when you're at an event, you want your account executives. This is my personal thought process. Maybe it's different for some people, but you want your salespeople, the ones closing deals, you want them to focus on the relationships and the clients that maybe they need to put a little bit more time into to either cross-sell, upsell, or close a deal that's right on the border, right? What you need, though, is somebody there that is going to be doing just strictly pipeline generation, new business pipeline generation, right? When I created the system for my previous company, we were sending account executives and customer success reps and everybody like to these events, and the frontline pipeline builders were staying home. And we all kind of were like thinking about it in a way like, wait, why are we leaving them? Like, they're the ones that are specifically there to like generate the pipeline. Like, let's send them. Right. So we started sending them. And again, like the pipeline just went through the roof. Quality conversations went through the roof because we were starting to do event sales enablement, like training on these things. Right. Not just like, hey, this is your talk track, follow it, here's a script. This is really like, mindset training, separating your identity from your role so that like when somebody just says no and walks away from you, you're not like completely crushed from the inside out, right? These are things that really, really are important. So what I specifically do at events is I do that for company. I will be the one that builds the new pipeline for you while your existing salespeople can focus on whatever else they need to focus on. Take your client to lunch, get a coffee with someone, do whatever you need to do. And I will be the one at the booth all the time, bringing people in, showing them demo, well, handing off to people that know how to demo your product, right? That's exactly what I do and what the team does. And if you have the people that want to go to the event, what I can do is I can train your guys, right? So on that mindset training, on just honestly, like just talk track training, that is, I would say, more of a storytelling framework, right? There's this concept, I think, obviously like the hero's journey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
for sure,
of course, right? It is a framework that every single epic and every single amazing like action movie and story uses over and over and over again. They just recycled. If you love Marvel movies, great. I'm here to tell you that every single Marvel movie is the exact same thing, right?
And Star Wars. And I actually looked behind me, Jeffrey, for a quick second because I had the book now I'm going to telling your story, creating your story brand by now I can't think of the author's name, but he is all about that piece. Do you know which book I'm talking about?
I unfortunately know, but
okay. So this is how epic it is, though. That the hero's journey is. Multiple people have talked about this and using that in storytelling, and then of course in sales and marketing. So continue. I apologize.
No, totally fine. Yeah, I mean, the point really that I'm making is that everything can be formulaic, even your talk track with salespeople. And I'm a big believer of not sticking to a script, but sticking to a structure. So if you are creating a movie and you want it to be an amazing epic, great. Stick to the hero's journey framework and you will have something great on your hands, or at least something that people will like because it is a proven framework that works. Right. So I've been really lucky in my career, like starting out in tech in Silicon Valley, moving to New York and working in different industries, to be able to have awesome sales trainers that have shown me solid frameworks that I've been able to like modify and kind of make my own. And any company that you go to, they have an ICP. They have I would say characteristics of companies that work specifically with them, whether it's an industry, whether it's the role of the individual that you're talking to, whether it's the size or technographic information of a company. They have specific problems that they solve, right? If you understand the problems that a company can solve for, the people that you're talking to, and the symptoms of those problems, you can really have a conversation with anybody about anything, right? And that is the high level conversation that I will bring to the table and train their reps on, so that when they're out on the floor, they can have those conversations and quickly pivot if they need to. Because like a storyboard, all you really need to do is plug and play if things aren't really going the way that you want.
Nice. So tell me, Jeffrey, how would you compare and contrast to what some people call brand ambassadors, professional booth staff? Going really far away would be like trade show models, which is kind of, but it's booth staff that you've brought in to have people that are outgoing. I'm hearing already, talk track, the story, the scripting, focused on problems and the hero's journey piece. Is there other additional pieces that you would then say, okay, compared to either their in-booth staff SDRs that they might already have, compared to professional booth staff, and then with the event reps, what does that look like if you kind of compared across those three categories?
Yeah, and I've heard so many different phrases for those types of people. This right, but one thing I will say is they're phenomenal. They're great, and they are really good at what they do. There's a reason that they do what they do, but they aren't really attached to the outcome of the show after it's over. They're there specifically to help you in that moment, and they do a great job. But before the show starts, what are they doing to help you build pipeline? They're not, right? So that's one piece too that event reps brings to the table. We're there to help you and train you and make sure that you guys create a systematic approach to events to win in the future. Not just showing up to the event and doing it and then saying like, hey, thank you so much for
Mm-hmm.
having me.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I'll maybe see you at the next event. Right. They're great if you have the system and you just need some extra bodies. Right. Fantastic. Bring them, hire them, do what you need to do. But if you're there because you need to figure out the system and you need to understand like whether events are going to be worth it in the future, you need to be able to measure the leads that are coming to the booth. And so that's why like the scanner that I have really measures the tiers of leads in or so, again, who you're following up with after the show, how many A leads you had, how many B leads you had.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at key insights to make sure that like this is a show worth going to in the future. And then after it's over, again, because we have the context, because we were boots on the ground and we were helping people all throughout the way, we know what you should be doing from a follow-up standpoint, from a sequence standpoint, from again, a talk track standpoint,
Yeah.
because context matters, right? It's all in the notes that are in the scanner. It's all in the notes that you've taken personally. If you didn't use the scanner, I mean, again, we recommend using the scanner because it does have a framework that is complementary to our system. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't want to use it, that's fine. As long as you take notes, it's very, very important to do that. And then it also is from a training standpoint, you're able to then see and measure like how each salesperson did at the conference, because you can look at all of the notes that they've taken. You can look at all the leads that they got. So, hey, salesperson A, they had 15 A leads and 6 B leads, whereas salesperson B had 40 C leads. Like what was going on there? Let's take a look into the data. Let's take a look into the notes, and then you can really diagnose things. I'm a big believer that if you're not measuring anything when you're at these events, you're not learning anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to the events and you can have a great time and you can enjoy the happy hours and you can enjoy the post show events that they put on, right? Go tour the, I don't know, like Boston area in a duck boat, right? Those are really fun things to do. But if you're not measuring the leads while you're there, if you're not measuring the ROI or the cost per lead or anything like this, then what are you really doing to make sure that the next time you go, it's going to be better than the last time you went?
Yeah. Now, what I'm getting from this, Jeffrey, is that, across those 3 phases, the before, during, after,
Yep.
there's much more of a holistic approach because there is that continuity between
Sure.
those phases where in a company, it's often going to be marketing, then it's going to be maybe some sales and marketing staff, and then it's going to be SDRs with, automated emails doing follow-up and nurture, right? Like it might be a little bit detached. The other thing I'm hearing too is just this, the measurement is so key. And I know that most companies will do hot or not hot, right? Like either SQL or MQL or some sort of delineation, but actually having more, like you said, A, B, and C. That's interesting from that sales rep point of view, and holding the booth staff accountable. That's
Absolutely
huge. And
it's also really, really helpful on the back end, right? When you're coming home from that event and you have that list of 200 leads, there's a lot of, I mean, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of garbage in there sometimes.
Oh, sure.
Right? You're going to be talking with somebody, you're going to scan their badge, and you're going to have the greatest conversation. At the very end, they're going to say, hey, so listen, I'm actually looking for a job. Is there any way that you guys are hiring by chance? And then you'll be like, oh my gosh, you just wasted 10 minutes of my time, man.
Yeah. Or I was just wanting to talk to you enough to get this gift. Can you, or just took a demo because of that? Yeah.
And so if you are using either a badge scanner that will, immediately take all that info and put it into your CRM because it integrates with your CRM, fantastic. That's great. But you're then going to have garbage data in your CRM, right? So again, do you want to have that garbage data in there? Absolutely not. So you need to score your leads in a much more, I would say, I don't know, just intentional way, so that you really focus on bringing the ones in that you have a shot with, or the ones that maybe could, at the very least, refer you to the right decision maker within the organization.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about metrics, right?
Sure.
We were talking about measurement right now. There's a lot of companies still, it's just, MQLs. And then, who are the hand raisers? Who are those sales qualified leads or potential opportunities? Is it, and it's interesting because, what do we optimize for? What are we incentivizing traffic or the attendees to do, right? And I've been posting a lot lately, like just the amount of swag given out now has just made people so darn entitled. And it's just kind of like, it kind of disgusts me, after a while. And it's like, we're optimizing just getting people to stop, and then no further interaction other than that. And then we're calling that a win. So instead of saying raw scans or leads, we're talking pipeline beforehand. Are we talking, leads to opportunities, percentage conversion, or leads to pipeline? Or are we looking at, optimizing, and we talked about this a little bit in the intro, like, is it event spend compared to pipeline produced? Like how do you measure success the way that you operate with event reps?
I think it's all of the above. Like everything that you just said is right on track with what we want to do. The first thing I want to know is what your budget for that specific event is, right? Because again, if you've told me that you spent X amount on the booth and X amount on swag and X amount on the travel and the tickets and everything, then we have a good baseline for what we need to get out of that show, right? I mean, plus obviously the cost of like working with us. Again, one deal could make up for everything that you just spent. But do you just want to make up for everything that you spent, or do you want to actually have a positive ROI on these events, right? And so then you work backwards, right? So essentially it's how many qualified opportunities do you need to close a deal, right? What's your close rate? So then you just work backwards from there. And so my big focus is the qualified opportunity piece, because after they have the discovery or the demo or whatever it is that the company is going to do, I don't really have any insight into what happens further down their pipeline, right? I'm not, as much as I would love to, like, don't get me wrong, I love helping people close deals, but that's not really what EventReps does, right? So we're going to help you create the pipeline, and it has to be qualified pipeline, right? So that's what we're going to measure. We're going to measure qualified opportunities. And so that's what we'll talk with the sales leaders. We'll talk with the marketing people, like, hey, what does your pipeline actually look like? What are we measuring? What's your win rate? All those things, so that we can then take a look at, how much you need, how many leads you need in order for it to be a success, like a win or a loss from that standpoint. Cost per lead is also super, super effective as well, in terms of like whether or not you've run a good show, right? And that's also something that you can take by obviously like the total cost of the show versus the amount of wins that you have from that show. But that's actually a number two that you'll learn later on down the line. So I do like to keep in contact with the customers that I've had, so that we can see how many deals led, or how many opportunities that we created led to close won deals.
Yeah. Well, I think you're speaking everyone's language who's probably listening to this podcast, because it's just like, yes, like hallelujah, kind of thing. I think in certain company structures, this works better than others. And like you said, it's not exactly for everyone, right? But it sounds like a real surgical strike for the right company who wants to get that, bang for buck and really run. Like, the thing too, we talk about, we have a model called the trade show triangle, and it's different levels of companies and how they show up. And at a certain point, they switch over from looking at a show as a project to working it as a process, right? Like this is an ongoing thing. We always do this. This is how we run our program, if you will, in that sense. Sure. And instead of like, okay, we got this show coming up, how are we doing it this time? What did we do last time? And it's not as run as tightly, right? And then the best companies that are at the very top, they just execute it so well, right? Like that's how they really. So I just see a fit, and I think there's a lot of great. You have a lot of great. I don't want to say ideas. I just want to say like IP, around how this works really well. So if people were listening to this and they go, EventReps, how do we find EventReps? How do they connect to you, Jeffrey?
Well, the website is eventreps.io. They can connect with me, Jeff at eventreps.io, or on LinkedIn, Jeffrey Coppola. And I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear all about your event strategy. I would love to, if you just want to chat events, that's totally fine too. Again, I'm not, people think I'm crazy when I say this, but it is true. I'm not in this truly to become the next like C-Vent, or I'm not in this to become the next billionaire event process or company. I'm in this like, because, and even in sales, because I just like to help people. So if I know that I can do something really well, I will come talk to me. I'll help you. I'll try to figure out what we can do to make your event process better. And of course, if you pay me, I mean, hey, I live in New York. It's expensive here. So again, I would always appreciate that too. One thing I will say though too, and I guess I'll leave you on this though. If you start a company, let's say, right, you're creating a software, you're creating a consulting service or something like that, you go through the effort of hiring a marketing team, hiring a product team, creating your website, creating your marketing collateral, all this stuff, and then you just sit on your butt and you don't do anything. You just wait for your customers to come to you. Absolutely nothing. No campaigns, no outbound approach, no nothing. You would tell me that that's an insane way to run a company, right? Of course. So then, like, I'll ask you, why do you do that at events then, right? If you're looking at events as a revenue channel, treat it that way, right? Create the systems, do your due diligence, have multiple outreach channels, everything, because then it'll actually start paying off, right? This is something that I think is so important, and not a lot of people are doing it because they just kind of fall to the status quo, right? So again, if you want to reach out to me, more than happy to chat. And again, if on this the podcast, you can put my email address, my LinkedIn, everything like that, and I will be more than happy to chat.
Awesome. Well, you're so accessible, and I'm so glad you made yourself accessible to us for the chat that we've had here on the
having me. Yeah, truly.
Awesome. Well, and to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. And until next time, you know what to do. Stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and stay engaged.